Melanie and I have been married 5,296 days. It's true. True story. We got married 3 years and 1 day after our third year anniversary. It's said that it takes about 10,000 hours to get good at something. We were just under 30,000 when we got married. We went to our honeymoon. And on our honeymoon, we went to a all-exclusive, all-you-can-eat kind of a place, resort. We didn't want to have to think or worry about things. We had just gotten done with this massive wedding of like 700 people we didn't even know or want. We get to dinner, they serve up dinner. I'm starting to eat food, and as I'm eating off my plate, a little shrimp fell back into my plate. Melanie looks at it. Is that shrimp? Is that shrimp? I was like, I didn't even cook the food. I don't know. It could be tofu. I don't. We prayed over this. And so, as she would tell it, she says, I was joking. You didn't get it. But she's like, are you even Adventist? I think it's tofu. And then she looks at me across the table and she says, I don't even know who you are. In my head, I was like, I don't even know who you are. I don't have any idea. I mean, were you that crazy and I just didn't know it? I think sometimes the big question we've got to ask is, do we know who Jesus is? Do I even know who Jesus is? In our passage today, it's actually found in chapter 25. And chapter 25 is a apocalyptic chapter. So you'll find 3 parables in there. And each of the parables is about this big apocalyptic cosmic picture. There's the imminent return in each parable. There's the figure, the one figure who does the returning. There are those who are on the correct side and who aren't doing the things right. The first one is the bridesmaids, the virgins. There were the wise virgins, and then there were the foolish ones. The wise virgins knew that they were going to have to be there a while, so they brought extra oil. The foolish virgins didn't bring enough oil, and so they had to go back when the groom came. These foolish virgins, they named that day the Great Disappointment. If you're not Adventist, ask an Adventist friend. Apocalyptic. In the second parable, we see the parable of the talents, and there was the returning of the master, and the one servant, the last one, had the time correct. He knew that there was going to be a return. He said, I knew you were going to return, master, but the problem with them is he didn't understand the master's character. He said, I knew you were an evil man. I knew you were a hard man. And because of fear, he hides his talents. Some of us know what it's like to grow up in a church that is frightening. Any Christian who operates from the place of fear is operating from the wrong place. The last one, this passage that we're on today. Interesting, I think. It's about this cosmic return of the Son of God, where the Son of God does this thing, sheep and goats to my left and to my right, and they are in this big moment together, and no one in that room knew what the Son of God looked like. They didn't know. They couldn't tell what it is that this person looked like. What do you look like, Jesus? Do I even know who you are? This is a question we've been asking for centuries as followers of Jesus. What do you look like, Jesus? We've attempted our best over the years to figure out what Jesus looked like. We've had artists of all kinds as early as 200 AD in the catacombs that would script what they believed Jesus would look like. All the way from that moment to Leonardo da Vinci's Last Supper, to Michelangelo's Last Judgment on the altar of the Sistine Chapel, to modern depictions of Jesus. We do our best because we would like to see Jesus. If you've ever grown up with a Steps to Christ in your home, do you remember? Anybody remember the giant Jesus by the building? Come home. There was the surfer blonde Jesus with the long hair. There was the ethnic Jesus. Anybody remember the ethnic Jesus? We long to see Jesus. In our last series that we did at Last University Church, it was called The Peacemakers, and we created this graphic, and the graphic was a depiction of Jesus because we just thought it's important to see Jesus. And as I would write my sermons, I would look at this graphic and I would think to myself, that Jesus looks a lot like Matthew McConaughey. The Matthew McConaughey Jesus. Flip that back and forth a couple times. Am I wrong to see Matthew Jesus McConaughey? Right? Am I right? We long to see Jesus. And then some of us loves the Puerto Rican Jesus. Have you seen the Puerto Rican Jesus around? Right? San Lenore, if you're wondering where this came from, I'm not going to say any names. I'm not telling on anybody. But I think you can guess who sent me that photo, Sam. We all want to see what Jesus looks like. We've done our best with our imagination. Artists over the years have tried to give us a picture of Jesus, but I think we've all been trying too hard. For in our text today, the question was, Lord, when did we see you? When did we see you? Here's Jesus' answer found in the book of Matthew chapter 25. If you haven't been there already. I was hungry, you gave me food. I was thirsty, you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. I was naked and you gave me clothing. I was sick, you took care of me. I was in prison and you visited me. When did we see you, Jesus? When did we see you, Jesus? Jesus replies in verse 40, just as you've seen it to the one of the least of these who are members of my family, you have done it unto me. Talk about moving from comfort. We have to sit in this text as Jesus says, as you did it to one of the least of these who are members of my family, you've done it unto me. He's saying three things right here in this moment. Number one, Jesus points to the least of these as they are looking at, if you want to see me, basically, Jesus says, you've got to look to the least of these. Number one. Number two, Jesus calls the least of these my family members. This is not Taimi's version. This is the Bible. Jesus says, these are members of my family. To proclaim that there is adoption or that there's family lineage and connection is to say they are a part of my grand plan. In other words, when you are caring for the least of these, those least are a part of my gracious grand plan. They are my family. And as you are doing to them, it equals doing to me. This idea of caring for the least of these is not a new Jesus idea. It's an always been Jesus idea. It's not crazy, it's biblical. Somebody say amen. This is what Jesus has been doing since the beginning of time. Jesus speaks through his prophets over and over and over to a people who themselves once were foreigners, to a people who themselves once were oppressed, to a people who themselves once were hungry and naked and in the wilderness. And as they were going through those experiences, God kept them. And so he wanted to remind these people, as I have kept you, you must keep others. He speaks through the prophets. Isaiah implores, learn to do good, seek justice, help the oppressed, defend the cause of the orphans, fight for the rights of widows. Zechariah pleads, do not oppress the widow or the fatherless, the foreigner or the poor. Do not plot evil against each other. Deuteronomy proclaims, he defends the cause of the fatherless and the widow and loves the foreigner residing among you. This is not icky time. This is the Bible. Friends, go to Deuteronomy when we're done here, please. Residing among you, giving them food and clothing, and you are to love those who are foreigners, for you yourselves were foreigners in Egypt. This is not new Jesus talking in Matthew. This has always been Jesus. The followers of Jesus always follows Jesus, no matter what generation, empire, or administration we live under. We follow Jesus. There's this Jewish law that we find in the book of Leviticus. It's called Be'ah. Everybody say Be'ah. Be'ah basically means corner. You'll find it in the book of Leviticus, chapter 23, and it reads like this. When you reap the harvest of your land, you shall not reap the very edges of your field, or gather the gleanings of your harvest. You shall leave them for the poor and the alien. I am the Lord your God. When you see the least of these, and you do unto them, they are my family member. And as you do unto them, you do unto me. The noisy world around us wants us to be distracted by echo chambers and partisan problems and punitive politics. Take sides on all matters. You need to take a side. You're either on this side or that side. And once you're on this side, we can tell you what kind of person you are. If you're on one side, you're a hateful oppressor. If you're on the other side, you're a woke socialist. But whatever we do, never love anyone on the other side. Let's demonize everyone so that no one can care for anyone. There's a voice that is trying to distract us in this world. And we get caught up in all of this jargon and the junk so that we begin to take our eyes off of Jesus. And when I say take our eyes off of Jesus, I mean take our eyes off of Jesus. We begin to take our eyes off of Jesus. Jesus becomes the subject in our argument and not the subject of our adoration. Reverend Professor Albert Tates, in a talk, once said, America has more fans that follow the donkey and the elephant than the lamb. Church, we've been distracted a little bit. It's been a noisy world around us. We don't have to rely on the imaginations of those who are drawing pictures for us. We just got to keep our eyes on Jesus. We've got to know who God is. We must be caught up not in the mob mentality of the world, but in the mighty generosity of our God. When we're caught up in the mighty generosity of our God, we remember a God who reconciles. This God who didn't have to come after us, who could have started over at the beginning and nobody would have blamed him. But God said, no, I am in love with these people. These are my children. I will reconcile them by sacrificing myself that they may live eternally with me. That is a generous God. Sometimes we forget God's generosity and believe that it's all right. My children get that way. Do you have kids and they get that way? Where your generosity gets mistaken for their rights? I'm going to my room. Hold up. When I signed the papers by blood to the bank, your name wasn't on there. What's in my fridge? That's not your fridge. And that's not your food. And sometimes my kids get into it. Don't go into my room. First of all, that's my room. And I want the other child to go into my room. Sometimes we are so enamored by God's generosity that we believe it's ours. I get the right to tell people whether they get to come in the kingdom or not. I get that right. No, you don't get to come in here. This is my kingdom. The generous God says, hold up. Last I remembered, it was my blood that signed salvation for all. We don't have to rely on the imagination of fantastic artists through centuries. According to our passage today, we can see Jesus in the least of these. And we must be willing to see Jesus in the least of these if we are going to do the marvelous, generous, beautiful, reconciliatory work that the church was called to put its hands on the plow on. Who are the least of these, friends? Those most vulnerable in this world. Who are they? Those who are scared and scattered, who are they? Those who are marginalized, ridiculed, and demonized. Who are we doing that to? Well, if they would just show up at our church, it would be uncomfortable. It's not your church. It's not my church. Thank the Lord it's not my church. I might be fired after this. It's God's church. It was God's blood. It's God's work. We were called to come along God, not to pilot God. We were called to the uncomfortable work of loving people. Those in our queer community, children of ours, family members who are struggling quietly, hoping that the church would say, God still loves you. Why do we have a hard time with that? We are called to this work. What about our migrant families? Ah, beautiful families. Why? I'm so proud of my university president. He was here today, Dr. Kriston Arthur at La Sierra University. 2 weeks ago, when things got really active in our part of the country, they started closing the gates at our school because they wanted to protect our children and our students. Those are our Adventist kids and families. They need us. I ran into a pair of parents today, right on lunchtime, and they said, hey, we're from Canada. That's where my citizenship is. We're from Canada, and our kids go to La Sierra University. And they've been texting us and telling us how grateful they are for a university who cares for them, who reminds them that they're safe, that they put their arms around them. They're making things to make sure that we don't get into any scary spaces. And they showed their parents this weekend. They said, look, we have to carry our passports everywhere because we're frightened. These are Canadians. Nobody hates Canadians. Our protection is much larger and much broader than just our imaginations. Our care and our love ought to be for those who are most frightened, even when we're uncomfortable with that weight. Because Jesus says, as you've done to the least of these, you've seen me, and you've done it to me. Everybody would like for you to buy into their ideology, but Jesus spells it out in this apocalyptic parable found in chapter 25 of Matthew. You could just go there, spend your time, and listen that you might see Jesus.